the break that mostly what I do is show up here and Ken and I bag on Ryan. So it's going to be a little different format today.
It's more awkward if we do that. I'm right here. I'm right here.
Right here. No one's going to talk to you.
Right.
So I talked about this before back in August, and I think people have kind of forgotten about it.
I think they have. And I think the news reporting came out early.
It did.
Thereabouts this summer. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here we go.
So it's, I had to check my calendar. I have no idea what day it is. It's November 2nd.
Okay.
And on December 1, new overtime rules go into effect for everyone. This is a federal law.
Why was it December 1, not January 1? I don't know what that would be.
I don't know the DOL, the Department of Labor, went through a rulemaking procedure. You remember that from law school. It was a years-long process. So December 1 is the effective date. People have had plenty of lead time to address this, but here we are. We have less than a month, and if you have employees who are salaried, who are making less than $47,746, which is roughly $900 some odd dollars a week,
right,
and you are not paying them overtime and they're working more than 40 hours a week, they are now subject to receiving overtime pay.
Are there any exclusions to that, categorically, in terms of whom those salary folks are?
There are a couple of exclusions for learned professionals and creative professionals. So lawyers, doctors, artists are excluded from that. There are still tests related to things like if your job is primarily administrative, like a secretary, and you're only doing that versus someone who's doing like some office management plus some day-to-day duties of a job, like in a small business.
That may be exempt, may not. Okay.
And then there's some for managerial, but we are trying to move away from this because one of the things we were saying is that, like, let's say you're a manager at a Zips.
Right.
And you're making, I don't know, $25,000 a year, but you're really only doing a tiny bit of management, and most of what you're doing is actual work that your employees are making. And so it turned out they were making less than minimum wage. So that's part of the impetus for this process. So you have to have actual managers to get the exemption. And so there are a couple of things employers should know. So if you have anyone who's making, the previous exemption threshold was, I believe it's $23,125. It's $23,000 and change. It's gone up quite a bit, but it hadn't been revisited since 2000.
Right.
That was 14 years ago. I know those of us who graduated in the 90s think that was just five or 6 years ago.
I'm sorry.
And so it's a huge shift. So if you have salaried employees, no matter your size of business, who are making less than that $47,000, and you're regularly having them work overtime, you're either going to have to pay them overtime.
Right.
You're going to have to keep them on a strict 40-hour-a-week schedule to keep them from doing overtime and maybe rearrange duties. We're going to have to raise their salary.
Well, that's my understanding that if you would move, for instance, that maybe that gray area, if you mentioned office manager, administrative, if you went to salary, you just got to be very aware of at that 40-hour mark, because isn't it time and a half?
Absolutely.
Over 40 hours?
Time and a half. And there's some pretty favorable laws in Washington, for example, and in Idaho on a wage claim. If you weren't paying that overtime, the employer could be responsible for double and treble damages. So then you're paying 3 times as much or 4.5 times as much.
Right. It makes sense, though, given that if we're going to put the work into changing the policy and for the reasons you stated, that if folks are just looking to, let's just make everybody hourly.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that would be your knee-jerk reaction. Okay, we'll just go hourly. But if you are over and above that 40-hour mark, obviously there are going to be implications.
Sure. Although if you're hourly, and let's say you're more in the $25,000 range, so your hourly is somewhere closer to minimum wage, your pay is going to be a little different amount than if you raise them to $37.50. So maybe you contract around that. You cannot do paid time off in lieu of overtime to get away from the overtime rule. Sometimes people get paid time off or kind of a flex pay.
Right.
You can get there with bonuses.
See, these are the concepts that I think become really interesting. I think this is these are the concepts folks aren't probably realizing is, yes, you can move to hourly. Yes, you can pay time and a half after 40 hours, but how do you structure paid time off, sick leave, whereas that salaried person probably used to be just like, well, do what you need to do, but that also could be do what you need to do, and you're working 60 hours a week.
Correct.
And not getting compensated for it.
And so paid time off is not a way to get to that 40 hours. You can't count those days in. If you're giving someone paid time off, that's a whole different discussion. You should really, as employers, are mostly moving towards paid time off instead of sick days versus vacation days versus those kinds of things, so people don't have to come in and call on the day after St. Patty's Day and go, I'm sick, right?
That doesn't happen, does it?
Never at McNeice Wheeler.
No.
But we're all learned professionals, so it doesn't matter.
But Halloween did just happen.
Halloween did just happen.
Yeah.
I think people were more candy high at our office than anything else. But in terms of things like bonuses, that's somewhere where you can get someone who's there. If you're paid partly a bonus and partly a salary, you can avoid paying the overtime if you get over that 47,746. But the bonus has to be not discriminatory. Right? It has to be a mandatory bonus of 5% or whatever it is that gets you to that number. It can't be like, well, you might get this bonus. Right. But we decided we didn't like how you parted your hair today.
Yeah, we're just not going to do that.
So tough luck. So it has to be included in the package. The employers really need to think about, if you're not tracking hours, you need to do it now.
Right. And
learn what to do. So it's a good time to look at that. It's always a good time to look at your hire employee manual to make sure that it reflects that information. And it's always good to kick the tires on those.
Yeah, but actually I think you're bringing up several things that employers need to look at, whether it be their corporate docs, their, like you said, their employer docs, policy handbooks.
Yep.
And I think what would be interesting to have you come back and talk about this is the enforcement aspect of it. Okay, we know by and large what's coming down. We know what the legislation looks like. How does it look like in reality? How is it going to be enforced? And I think you're going to be a perfect person to chat with and say, here's how maybe it needs to be tweaked, or here's how you can follow it.
Right. And the other thing I think that, in addition to the enforcement piece, is to warn employers to not just try to cut salaries.
Right.
Don't just cut salaries and try to cut hours and try to force people into a flex schedule. You can't say this week you're working 50 and this week you're working 20. It's on a week-to-week basis, because I've already seen some employers try to say that. That won't fly with the DFL.
Robin, thank you for joining us. It was fun to have you on the show. Let's have you come back and do it again and talk about it in a little while. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
For the Inland Northwest's most comprehensive sports report, think outside the porch with Spokesman.com. For just 99 cents for the first month, you'll enjoy